Hey everyone, welcome to the Wednesday afternoon live stream. Today I'm going to be talking about what does a producer do? But before I get into that, I thought I'd say hi to everybody. I've got a list of things I want to talk about here, and I'm probably going to try to get through it without taking too many questions because y'all will distract me because y'all will say really cool things, and I'll be like, oh, what was I going to talk about? But before we do that, I just wanted to say, of course, Casey is here. Casey5181, who is modding from the Netherlands. Thanks, Casey. And by the way, Casey, thank you so much for staying awake till God knows when on that 8.5-hour live stream. Crystal later on said, oh, he stayed up through the whole thing. I really appreciate it, but you could have gone to bed. But I appreciate it.
And we're going to have a picture of Casey at some point that we get to show when we're doing introductions, but I haven't gotten that far.
Yep. We've got Kit here handling the chat and keeping me in line, and we've got Harper running the cameras. Missed you, Harper. Harper.
Hello.
Harper. That drum stream, dang it, man. Yeah. Could have used your help, but he has stuff to do. He actually has a job. So I was not going to take a bunch of questions till later on, but I was noticing it was Tumen official, and he's like, finally I get to attend a live stream. I hope I can get some questions in. All right, Tumen, since you said that, and I'm like, oh man, I wasn't going to do questions later. If you got a question right now, I'll take care of it before I get into my whole spiel here. So if you got something, Tumen, spit it out now. I see Hermitano. Oh my God, I can't say name.
Ermitaño.
There, thank you. We got Don. Could y'all just have names like Bob and Fred? I see got Don here. We got Rafael de Riviero. We've got Sacred. We've got Tylo Productions. Steve Yeager Music, Spy Guy, Soul Machine. Hey, what's up? AJ Stone, Marcin S. Hold on. Underdog is here. Stargirl Music, Cloudbounder, Stefan Schnabel, and I see Lisa Chase Wolf over there on Twitch because we're going to Twitch and YouTube at the same time. No, Underdog. Everybody gets asked questions probably a little later, though. I'm just going to let him do it because he's never been able to ask a question before, and I felt bad about it. I was like, oh, man. I actually did this thing where I did a Patreon exclusive live stream, which I'm going to actually do one later tonight. At 7 o'clock, I'll be doing a Patreon exclusive live stream, details about mixing live drums. I accidentally started streaming on Twitch. I didn't mean to. It's supposed to be a kind of a private thing for Patreon. And somebody gets on there and goes, oh, I'm in Australia. I finally get to watch a live stream. And I had to stop it because it wasn't meant for that. And I was like, oh, my God, I felt terrible, which is why I'm going to start doing more nighttime streams. I did one. What night was it that we did the guitar stream?
It was only a couple of nights ago, right?
Yeah, and that was late night. And that was a lot of fun because a lot of people didn't get to see because normally I'm streaming in the afternoon. So, I see Juke, Electric Owl Works, David Paybor. Did Tumen ever ask a question? If he didn't get his question in, I'm just going to get on with my spiel here.
No, not yet.
All right. Well, I will take questions and we can do commentary and discussion later. Yeah. Electric Owl Works. Oh, you're from South Wales. Cool. All right. Well, I guess since... here he goes. Okay, Tumen says, my room... Oh, my God, he's going to ask a hard question. I know it. My room is not ideal to mix, so I mix in Sony MDR. Oh, you're mixing in headphones. What are your thoughts on mixing in headphones? Did your first studio... No, I don't mix in headphones. I mean, I have. I'm not against it. I mean, I think the thing with mixing in headphones is you're going to have to really... spend a lot of time listening to other people's music and records that you like and doing a lot of A and B with that. My thing with mixing in headphones, I know the room's different and all that. It kind of changes your perception of the stereo width and stuff like that because it's right there. But I think the main thing is I don't have anything against it. I just think you're going to need to test it like in a car or something, like test it outside. You're going to have to do a lot of testing. At some point, you might get it down where you can really nail it. I've not really done much of it just because I like I don't like wearing headphones. I don't know. I just, you know. Um, all right. Oh, David's ready. Okay, let's get the show ready. He's ready. Okay. Yeah, Soul Machine, you're right, because you're in Europe, so this is a good time for the European crowd. I'm trying to make sure I can reach California. That's why I'm going to start doing nighttime streams. Like I said, I'll be doing the Patreon exclusive one tonight at 7. All right, so let's talk about what does a producer do? What does a producer do? And I've got my own opinions about it. A lot of people have different ideas about what a producer does. So just for the heck of it, I typed it into Google and I got some answers. Their AI response was, a music producer manages the creative and technical aspects of recording music. They work with artists to create high-quality recordings that meet the project's budget. Creative task, they help artists choose songs and adapt arrangements, coach artists in the studio, select and hire side musicians, and collaborate with artists to ensure quality recording. The technical tasks involved are use audio engineering skills to balance and adjust sound and beats. I like how AI phrases things. Work with the recording engineer, weigh in on decisions about mixes, manage recording sessions, editing, mixing, and budget. Other responsibilities include overseeing the creation of a musical recording, ensure the track is polished and ready for distribution. Skills and training needed. Learn to play a musical instrument, not necessarily so. Study music theory, write lyrics, develop audio engineering skills, network with other musicians, producers, and engineers. Projects can vary. Roles vary by project, but producers are responsible for ensuring the desired project quality while keeping costs within limits. Now, the Berklee School of Music, I think this is from Berkeley, their definition said, music producers oversee and direct recording projects for musical artists. Although their roles vary by project, producers commonly help artists choose material and adapt arrangements, coach them in the studio, select and hire side musicians, and work with the recording engineer and weigh in on decisions about mixes. Some of this sounds like AI was copying Berkeley's thing here. I would like to add that a producer can also be a scapegoat for the label or everybody if something goes wrong. They can also be a hero, and they're often the man behind the curtain. So I think both of those definitions are, basically right. As far as what is a producer, what does a producer do? I think the thing up here where there was something here like, it said ensuring the desired quality. And to me, that's the main thing that a producer does. And I'm going to get into more detail about different producers in here, different types of producers. But I think the number one thing is making sure that the quality is where it needs to be. Now, I think a lot of people get confused about the difference between somebody being a producer and an engineer, because there's been projects I worked on that I didn't produce, and maybe I just mixed, but people think I produced it. So the main difference is an engineer is the guy who's, he's setting up the mics, he's making sure everything's working, that the signal's getting to the DAW or the tape machine or however you're recording it. An engineer's job is really actually very, very hard. They need to be ahead of everybody. They've got to anticipate any problems and make sure that anything that needs to be set up is set up in advance. Or if there's suddenly something like, hey, we got to hook up like a drum machine or a keyboard, they can do it very quickly and very efficiently. And then at the end of the session, to make sure that the files, if you're on files or if they're tapes, that everything is labeled and stored properly. And, it's a huge responsibility that doesn't get a lot of credit. The hardest thing about being an engineer to me is that you're not really supposed to have opinions. An engineer's job is not to put opinions in. And even on the recording side, there's a lot of ways you can record things that are very stylistic, right? Like you can do all these weird effects. In most cases, most people that are strictly engineers aren't going to do that. Their job is to get a good, clean sound down. Let's get it down. It doesn't need to be too affected unless the producer's asking for it. But the main thing is an engineer is kind of supposed to keep their mouths shut. It's not their role to be putting ideas into a situation. There's already enough people doing that. Often producers' jobs cross over to engineering because a lot of producers like me are engineering at the same time. but the producer's job is to have an opinion. Now, like I said, there's a lot of different producers out there, but to me, the main thing that goes across all different types of producers is that it's their opinion and their vision. And there's different ways that that opinion and vision can have an impact. Sometimes the producer gets hired because they have a particular type of vision or sound or opinion, and people want that. Or they want somebody to come in and they'll give them a direction they want to go, and then it's the producer's job to help them achieve that vision and sound. But you need to listen to their opinion in getting to that sound, because if you tried to do it by yourself and you couldn't do it and you hired a producer, that was the whole point because of his opinion. So that's, to me, the main difference between an engineer and producer is that an engineer is not putting his opinion in. Okay, so there's different types of producers. Number one is what I call the movie director type or the hands-off producer. And I can think of two people that are very famous producers that were like that. One would be George Martin, who did the Beatles stuff. Now, there were some songs I think he played piano on, but mostly he wasn't sitting behind the board. I mean, there are some shots of him sitting behind the board and doing stuff, but mostly he was there as almost like a movie director to oversee the whole thing. He's dealing with making sure the flow's going, putting his opinion in on how fast the song is, or should we cut this section? He was actually an arranger as well. And but he wasn't really like setting up mics and doing that stuff, and in most cases not playing an instrument. Another great example would be Rick Rubin, who doesn't play anything and kind of doesn't know much about music. His role is to kind of like create a situation that is comfortable for the artist and kind of have this kind of more global perspective like a movie director, and direct people like that. Like, you have all these people that help you, engineers and arrangers and musicians, whatever, but he's up there to kind of watch the whole thing and make sure it's moving in this direction. But one thing that's interesting about both of those guys is that they're also involved with the record label. There was a huge part of what they did that went beyond just the recording session in the studio. They're involved in dealing with the label. Both of those guys, I think, well, Rick Rubin, of course, had his own label, and I think George Martin did too for a while, but both of them did A&R work as well. And a lot of those kind of producers are kind of like Diddy was one of those producers as well. And although well, that's a whole other story. But, they're involved in not just getting the record done, but making sure it gets pushed through to the label and gets to the right people, and that it's still important to the label and the people promoting it. So that's more like a movie producer's or director's role. The other kind of producer, I'm going to switch in the completely opposite direction, is what I call the all-in producer. And one of my greatest examples would be Jack Antonoff, who he was in Fun, and he produced Harper, help me out here. Who did he produce again? A lot of people. Taylor Swift.
I can't remember the other one, but he's got another band of his own,
Bleachers, yeah. I mean, Jack Antonoff has done a lot of work, and the thing about him, you'll see a lot of videos of him online. He's a guy that plays an instrument. He can engineer. He's engineering a lot of these projects. You'll see videos of him that he's not only got this global sound and a vision of what's going to happen, but he knows how to do it. He'll go in there and say, oh, I've got this technique where I distort the piano, or I put some chorusing and I run it through reverb and all that. He's like all in. He kind of does it all. That's a completely opposite direction, and he's playing on stuff as well. And that's kind of more the way I work, but that's kind of the complete opposite. But they're doing everything, right? So that's the second kind of producer. The third type of producer is what I call engineers with opinions. And these are typically guys that they started out as an engineer and got into it, and people started asking their opinions, or maybe they spoke up and had opinions, and they started producing, even though they don't play an instrument and they don't necessarily write, or maybe they played bass guitar in a band a long time ago, but that's not really their thing. And a good example of that would be, God dang, his name went out of my head. Started Interscope Records. Oh, come on, somebody help me out here. Bob Clearmountain would be like Yes. Soul Machine, I'd say Bob Clearmountain would be more of the engineer with opinions because he was like mixing and stuff like that. And I would say he would be a great example of an engineer with an opinion. And I know a lot of guys like that. Another great example, Jimmy Iovine. That's who I was thinking about. Jimmy Iovine would be an engineer with an opinion because he started engineering for John Lennon, I think, on the Double Fantasy album. And they just really liked him and started asking his opinion. And then he ended up doing Tom Petty and a bunch of other stuff. And it's interesting if you actually read any of his interviews and listen to him talk. He's not really like a musician, you know, but he knows how to get good sounds. But a lot of it's like knowing how to work with the artist. Steve Albini would be another good example. Great example. Yes. Steve Albini would be another producer, engineer with an opinion. Although I will say about Steve Albini, he didn't even like to be called a producer. He's kind of in a class of his own. People refer to him as a producer, and he didn't even like the whole idea of that. Then you've got the fourth type of producer is the co-producer. Now, you'll see situations where all types of these other producers could be co-producers as well. Normally, a co-producer is a situation where you go in with a band that maybe has self-produced some stuff and they got really strong opinions, or you're working with an artist who has some really strong opinions, but they don't really know how to get it done and they don't completely trust their own opinions. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Maybe they just need somebody there to kind of like, you know, say yes or no or whatever. And I've done quite a few projects like that as well with bands that kind of know what the hell they're doing. They kind of don't need a producer necessarily, but because it's a band and there's a lot of strong opinions, they sometimes need somebody to be the tiebreaker. And that's what my role has been a lot. I'll definitely put in opinions and ideas, but there's so much good stuff in there already. I don't really need to come in and say, hey guys, you're going in the wrong direction. They already kind of got it down. It's my role to come in, and when issues come up, I'm the guy who they all kind of look at me because they don't want to get in an argument in the studio. And I go, we're going to go this way. And everybody goes along with it. And that's actually, it doesn't seem like much, but can be hugely, hugely important because sometimes with bands, when they're producing together, there's either disagreements or they go down these goofy rabbit holes, which sometimes are really great, sometimes a waste of time. So it's kind of like my role to say, let's not do that. Let's go over here. The next kind of producer, and this can be kind of controversial from the way I view it, and that is the beat maker. So you have people today, they call themselves producers. And I'm not going to say that they're not, but they're basically making a beat, right? So they make a beat, they sell it to somebody, and then that artist uses the beat and they go in the studio. Sometimes those guys go into the studio with the artist. Sometimes they don't. Often they're not there for the mix. Now, I've worked with some great beat producers that were also really producers, like Little John and Polo de Don and Collie Park. All those guys made beats, but they're also in every single session, driving the thing, like driving the truck. And directing everything and being there for the mix. Oh my God, being there for the mix and just digging in on it. And then all of those guys too were also carrying it beyond into like label stuff like that. But I got to tell you, I did plenty of mixes for a lot of rap stuff I did where the beat was done by a very famous producer who never showed up to the studio and was never there for the mix. And it's kind of like, oh man, like they're getting all the credit and everything, but I and other mixers often found themselves in the role of doing additional production, and sometimes engineers too, because the artist picks the beat, they go to a studio, the guy who made the beat's not there, they're sitting there with an engineer, and they got to put vocals down, and often they're looking at the engineer and going, what do you think? And the moment that engineer says yay or nay, or do it again, or maybe punch in the second half, to me that crosses a line where that engineer is now in a production role, which means that they're now, the next category is the invisible and unknown producer. And I've found myself in that role plenty of times. And I'm going to do what I got to do, but it was kind of frustrating so many times that I was making these decisions and getting no credit for it. There were so many times as a mixer on rap records where I was asked to do things and get involved on a level that's like, okay, as a mixer, it's not my job to make certain types of decisions. I just need to make it sound a way that it needs to sound. But if they're asking me to like put edits in there or like, oh, there's these ad libs, make some decisions on which ones to take in and leave out. I was like, that's a producer's role. But I found myself many, many times doing the invisible production or working with a producer who doesn't really know what the heck they're doing. And they're kind of looking at me. I'm like, all right, dude, did a lot of that kind of stuff. And it's amazing how many people are out there actually contributing to production, and either they just do it because that's what they need to do and that's why people are hiring them and whatever, or they don't even realize that they're producing. But kind of comes back to the thing. Once you put your opinion in on a non-technical thing, like, hey, the direction of a song or how the performance should be or whatever, you're producing. The next category is the self-produced project, which a lot of people do now. And that's something that happens a lot. And sometimes I don't think people actually realize that's what they're doing. But to me, that is literally the hardest time. To me, let me say it again. To me, that is the hardest type of production to do, is self-producing, because you get into all the, thing where you're second guessing yourself and how do you have an objective viewpoint over something that's completely subjective that you're putting your heart and soul into. It's a very, very hard thing to do. I've been doing it for decades and I still struggle with it. I have like my techniques to deal with that sort of thing. But most people today are self-producing, whether they realize it or not. And I think one of the things is, as a self-producer, a self-produced artist, that you should probably do is maybe have some trusted people that you can get to come in once in a while and just listen to stuff and give some opinions and all that, and kind of get yourself out of that, into your, too inside your head thing. So to me, there's probably some other classifications in there. I think I saw Lisa Chase Wolf said the second opinion producer. Yeah, that's to me kind of like the co-producer. Also, okay, so those are like, to me, those are the different types of producers that I could put in a list. There might be others, but those are the main general types. Now, when I was getting ready for this stream and I was thinking about, what does a producer do? I got on Reddit and just basically online, and I typed it in. And one of the main things came up is, what is the gear used that a producer uses? What kind of gear do they need? And I kind of thought like, that's a weird way to think about it, because I don't even think about it that way. And I get it now, because people think of a producer as somebody like basically making a beat, making a track. And like I'm saying, I'm not saying that isn't production, but that to a lot of people, that's what it is. So obviously, you need a DAW and you Ableton. I'm not even going to get into all that. That's a whole other video. But I started thinking like, the thing that I think most people miss about what do you need to be a producer, and it's mostly about knowledge and skills and experience. Like you either need to have an insane amount of knowledge and experience and insight into one particular genre and just focus on that, or you need to know a lot about a lot of different stuff, different types of genres and the history of music and stuff like that. I think the knowledge and like technical experience is very important, but I also feel like people skills, like knowing how to deal with people, knowing when to encourage somebody and give them support, and then also know when to challenge somebody and tell them they're just being a baby about it and they're being lazy or whatever. Get in there and do the work. It takes a long time to figure out that kind of stuff. And I think the people skills is one of the most important thing. It goes, once you get beyond making a beat, the most important skill is knowledge and people skills. And people skills as, related to artists, not normal people, but artists, which is a whole different thing and requires you to be a bit of a psychiatrist.
I'm going to take real quick pop in here to say thank you for the raid, Ash's Rain Band.
Oh, cool.
Over there on Twitch.
Thanks for the raid. Appreciate that.
Welcome, viewers. Billy's talking about different types of producers.
Yeah. So how do you become, the other thing when I looked online, the other thing that I found when I looked online is people asking, how do you become a producer? And I would say the easiest way, well, not the easiest way, I would say the best way to do it is just to start doing it. I would suggest to anybody, even if you're just a beat maker, go out and try to get a guitar player in there and mic them up, even if you don't have a great mic. Just try it. The best way to become a producer is to tell people that you're a producer and just start doing it, even if it's not great. But the main thing is like do it a lot. Try to record every single day. Study other producers. Go look at every other video out there and see what other people do. There's a million ways to produce. There's no right way and no wrong way. And study the different types of production involved and practice doing it. Like just get artists and bands from around town or wherever you're at and say, okay, I'm going to try one where this band's really good. I'm going to get them in the studio and I'm going to listen to what they want and I'm going to try to give them what they need based on what they want and figure out how to do that. Even if I don't know how to do it, we're going to work it out, even if it takes hours to mic up a snare drum or whatever. Or you find an artist who's really good, like maybe a single artist who's a great singer, but they just play like piano or guitar or whatever, and they need some direction, and you're going to take the complete other approach. Oh, I'm going to try the all-in producer. I'm going to help them build up a song from scratch. I'm going to do every instrument. I'm going to build it up. I'm going to build this whole thing up. I try every single one of them. But the most important thing is if you want to do it for a living, and I've said this before, and that is to find artists or bands that are out there that are great self-promoters. They're gigging, they're putting out content on social media, and offer to do them something for them for free. And just nail it. Just freaking nail it. Because those people, if you do a good job, are going to go out and put that song out and talk about you. And that's going to be the best advertisement in the world. But there's no path of becoming a producer where you suddenly go, oh, I'm a producer and you're done. It's an ongoing process you do your whole life. I've been doing this since the late 70s, and I'm still learning. I'm always figuring out new things to do because every kind of type of producer that all 7 of those producers that I listed before, the different types of producers, I've done all of them. And sometimes I'm switching with what my role is, sometimes within the same project based on the situation, and I think that's one of the most important things to being a producer is that there's a balance between having an opinion and feeling the emotion and knowing how to put your soul into it, but yet at the same time having a global view and not getting too emotional about it and being able to realize like, oh, that's not the thing to do, or we need to go here, we should try this differently, we should switch things up, being adaptable. And that's the hardest thing. You've got to be adaptable. The next thing people ask when I looked online about producers was how to choose a producer. And that to me is one of the hardest things ever because I think sometimes people choose producers because maybe they had a hit, they were successful. So you think, oh, like if I work with them, they'll go do this things for me or whatever. It's got to be one of the worst reasons to hire a producer just because they were famous or worked on hits. You need to find the producer that is right for you. And how do you do that? Well, you should go meet them. You should go talk to them. Maybe see if you can hang out during a session or just take them out to dinner or lunch. That's the best thing you can do. You'd be surprised the people you would be able to talk to if you just offered to buy them lunch. Just going to say it, There's people that are always asking me for advice, and I'm usually too slammed to do it unless they're, paying me a consultation fee, which I do all the time. But it's like, man, I just ain't. But if somebody's like nearby and, say, hey, can I take you to lunch? I'm like, oh, yeah, I know this Mexican restaurant. And then I'll talk to them the whole time I'm eating, right? Just putting it out there, man. Buy me a burrito. But a burrito and a beer would be great. But go out and talk to them. And then also find people that they worked with and just say, how was it working with them? Because I think, I'll give you a great example. There was a project I did the last few years. And the artist came to me and said, they're talking about like Seal records and these big, produced records. And I love Seal. I like that kind of production. So we kind of launched into it and we did some great, great work. But then later on, I was kind of like, there were some things that happened and comments that were made and other people that kind of came in. I realized maybe this artist really, we should have just done something with a piano and a vocal with some sparse background. It would have been equally as good. Like I like doing the big production, but we could have done that. And I think that sometimes an artist will come to me and say that they want something, but they're actually, I think people say things for weird reasons, or they don't realize that what they're saying I'm going to take to heart. They're just talking about records they like. So I'm thinking like, okay, that's the record they like. Although they said that's what they wanted to do, I think maybe sometimes people say things that they think I'm going to like. It's like, that's not the way to do it. When you go talk to a producer about working with them, you need to tell them what it is that you want to do and how you think you're going to market it. Like when I talk to artists and they come to me and they say they want to work with me, we talk about the music styles and the records they like and how they'd like it to sound. But I always ask them, like, how are you marketing this? Is this to make CDs or records or cassettes to sell at gigs? Is this for, are you going to be focusing on like shorts and reels, TikTok? Is this in kind of a musical narrative where it's all about an album and there's a string of songs that are going to go together? Is there a big live component, touring involved here? And how that record, and that's important because, if you're a huge touring band and you're a big part of your audience and your market is live, you need to make sure that your album, it's not that it necessarily needs to sound live, but you got to make sure you're doing songs that are going to work live, good in a live context. I remember I think it was the first Infamous String Dusters record I did. They had a lot of songs that were very mid-tempo. Kind of not quite a ballad, but just kind of mid-tempo, and they're just amazing. And there was one that Travis Book had that I really, really liked, and it's really pushing them to do it. But there's this one point during the pre-production, and by the way, pre-production, I should have talked about that. Pre-production is where you get together with a producer ahead of time. If you're a band, you actually go through the songs and practice, work out arrangements, get used to working together, maybe make quick cell phone recordings or cheap demos, in advance before you go into the studio. Even if you're not a band, you might want to get together with them and just work on songs. So we were doing pre-production, and there was a point where somebody in the band said, we got a lot of good songs here, but they're all mid-tempo. We need some songs that people can dance to. And I was like, oh, yeah, their main thing is like they're a live touring band. So it kind of stopped me, and they were following my direction because, I'm a known producer. And then I was like, oh, okay, we need to cut some songs. Who's got some fast songs? Because you could put the album out and they get some airplay and stuff like that, but it's mainly about putting out records that work with what they're doing as a career. So as a live band, they need to have stuff that people can jump around and dance to. So, I always ask people what it is that they're doing. So when you're looking for a producer, make sure that you let them know the sound, where you want to go with their career, and where you want to go with your career, and how. I mean, that's the only thing. I'm saying that terribly. Hold on, let me take a sip of coffee here. Talk to them about the sound that you want and where you want to go with your career, how you see yourself being marketed, and also if you have any kind of marketing plans or where you think your career is going to go. A good producer actually is going to take that into heart. It's not just all about getting in the studio and doing cool things, which ultimately is the best thing you could do, but it does need to make some sense going along with what you're trying to do as an artist. I'll give you another example. I had a jam band. Don't want to mention their name. They're kind of known jam band. And when I talked to them, they said, it's all about the art. We don't care. So, okay, cool. So I followed their instruction, and they had these songs that were like 12 minutes long and 8 minutes long and 15 minutes long. I'm like, okay, cool. We get to the mix, and one of them goes, hey, which one's the single? I'm like, single? What are you talking about, single? And they're like, yeah, which one could we put on the radio? And I'm like, none of them. All of them are over 6 or 7 minutes long. Like, you're probably not going to, we could, but yeah, I don't even know how. And they're all kind of like, I was like, you guys said it was just about the art. I didn't think that you actually were trying to put something on the radio. Had they told me that from the beginning, I would have made sure there was at least one song that was maybe the catchiest one that we cut down. We make it short. Let's make it 3 or 4 minutes long. Come on. So it's very important to let people know where it is that you want to go. All right. So that's my little spiel about what a producer does. I know it's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's kind of like an overview of what I think a producer does. Let's see if anybody's got. Okay, now I want to look at the comments because I know people are making comments up here. Let's see. Well, Lisa's got a lot to say.
Yeah, a lot of folks agreeing with you at the about different types of producers and their own experiences. And yeah, a lot of love over here for Kiss from a Rose.
Yeah.
And
yeah, so Lisa Chase Wolf, she's saying a good producer can make you a good album with the SM57 and tape recorder if they're good. Yes, I could. But that's actually really true. Like, in the end, if they have the right songs and the artist has got the right performance, it could be something very simple. Actually, Kit, like that guy Nathaniel that was here recently, I did another one of my consultations, and he's a local guy that we know, and he came over here with his DAW, and he does cover gigs and stuff like that, but he's got these amazing originals, and God, his lyrics are really, really good, but he's never really pursued it before. He's been playing like Mexican restaurants for 10 years, and he wants to do original music, and he's been working on these demos, and I've heard a couple of them, and he's putting drums on all this instrument, and they don't sound that good because he doesn't know how to do it. So he sat down here and he played me some songs, and it was just him and his acoustic guitar. I'm like, oh my God, these are really good. And I'm telling him, like, yeah, learn how to use the drum machines and all that stuff. But in the end, what you just need to do is get good performances of you just sitting here singing with that acoustic guitar. Because to me, that stuff was just like, oh, really great singer-songwriter type stuff. And I don't know if I'm going to get into producing him or not. He's just looking for help right now on learning how his gear works. But yeah, he could literally do that with a couple SM57s. If the performance is good, if you think about, is it Bon Iver who did the album where he was like in a cabin and then just used a 57 and the little kind of weird EV mic and all that and just did it on an 8-track, and it's just amazing, and it's like very lo-fi, but you don't really think about it because the vibe is good. So Lisa, you're totally right on that.
Actually, yeah, you caught me, Spy Guy. I'm sitting here looking at that. Is he talking about me? Because I am. And then I realized I'm wearing my Fleetwood Mac shirt. Yes.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, if you want to talk about production, there's actually a book about the making of Rumors, which was a little intense to read. Yeah, they were kind of bonkers. I think they once spent like a full day just on the kick drum sound, or 3 days or some stupid shit like that. Of course, that was back when you had the money to do stuff like that. Just like, let's see. Wait, hold on. What's she saying? The Clown Core album? Oh, I think I skipped something here.
Let's see.
Oh, yeah. At least you're talking about. You're talking about Albini being a producer, and then Jeff Matz of High on Fire. Trying to get a band. It's hard to read chat on streams because I'm terrible at actually reading things. But yeah, I think you're talking about somebody who's producing and not realizing it. And actually, that's kind of how I started. When I started producing, I kind of got into it because I didn't know I was producing. I didn't even know what it was. I just had a lot of opinions. I've always had opinions. And I was one of those guys that, as an engineer, I was supposed to keep my mouth shut, but I wouldn't. So I threw a lot of opinions in there. Different kind of sessions, though. Those were local bands without a label. So I think a lot of people didn't know what the etiquette was. So luckily for me, I threw my opinion out there and it took on, and people started hiring me for my opinion. Let's see. Let me go over to YouTube.
Actually,
here.
Let's see where to go. Underdog had a question.
Mm-hmm.
Does the producer handle the money aspect? Who makes sure that everybody gets paid?
Yeah. Let's go to it. So repeat the question, Kit.
Does the producer handle the money aspect? Who makes sure that everybody gets paid?
Okay, that's a great question. If I am working for a label or an investor and they're coming to me, yeah, then as a producer, I'm responsible for that. I've got to make sure that sometimes I'll go use another studio. I mean, mostly I record in my home studios, but there's been a couple times I needed to go someplace that was bigger or something like that. So I'm going to talk to them about a budget, and I'm going to hire session musicians. I'm also going to make sure that they sign work for hire contracts. I also need to make sure there's catering. you know, so I'm calling up and either catering or I'm just bringing somebody with me who's going to run out and get pizza. It can be anything. Making sure we have hard drives. Sometimes we've had to rent stuff. So yeah, that's all for me. There's also been times where the person that was paying, it was just the artist. The artist hiring me and they're paying, but they still want me to handle the money. They want me to negotiate with the musicians because maybe they're not sure. They're a little uncomfortable about it, or they know me and they know that I've got people that I work with, and I'll probably get a better deal if I'm talking to the musicians, if they're just, as opposed to they're just some stranger calling up, because people like to work with me and people do cut me good deals. So I often get better deals for the side musicians. But it also lets the artists not have to think about that. So yes, often as a producer, I am handling a lot of the money aspects. Any other questions here?
There's some, they're veering off topic just a little bit, but like Tumen Official said, Billy, I love your song Long Distance Runner. I studied some of your mixes. How did you get the low end from Party Like a Rock Star so big? I know you have a video, but you didn't really mention the 808 processing.
I mean, on Party Like a Rock Star, that was produced by Jason Pittman, who is a guy I've known for a long time, bass player, really great bass player, actually, but also a really good engineer. And it's funny, people don't think of him as an engineer. I mixed a few things for him, and his stuff would always just come in spotless, perfect. And he just had great sounds. I mean, yeah, I don't know exactly what I did on that song. I've got the Pro Tools session around here somewhere, and I went and looked at it, and was like, oh, yeah, I did a couple things. I mean, basically, I probably did with him what I do on most stuff that's recorded pretty well, and that is I actually remove low end on 808s and bass instruments. What I do is I start cranking the speakers up and I turn up the bass, and every time I hear the speakers distort a little bit, I just try to figure out what frequency it is, and I pull it down a little bit. Because the thing about bass is, especially a bass guitar or an 808 part that's melodically moving around, some notes are going to stick out a little bit more. And if you can identify certain notes, because normally when your speakers are blown up on the low end, it's not constant. It's like, if you can find those frequencies and duck them down so that it's not sticking out, then it's going to be a smoother sound. So you do that, and then you turn it back up. Basically, you turn it up till everything does start to distort consistently. You hear a note. Oh, I had these Event PS6s, and they had these little lights on them that when I'm overdriving it, and it's usually from the low end, they blinked, right? So I'd turn up the mix, and they start blinking, and I would like, okay, it's that note, and I'd bring down those frequencies. I'd turn it up some more, and I'd get it to where it kind of blinked constantly, and then I brought it down a little bit. That's a rude way to do it, and there's other ways too. The other thing I've found, just generally speaking on anything with an 808 on it, if you just take 51 hertz and drop it down on a semi-narrow bandwidth, just drop it down about 2 or 3 dB at the most. Right off that takes care of a bunch of stuff. I don't know what it is about that frequency. It's just always too freaking loud.
I put up a link. Billy actually has a YouTube video called The Evolution of the 808. So that's a pretty fun video to watch. There's a link in chat.
Yeah, there's a song. So in that video, there's a song I did for Bone Crusher called Grippin' the Grain. And a few years after that album came out, it was from, the Never Scared album. Oh, no, the Attention album that had Never Scared on it. So the song was called Grippin' the Grain. I think it was produced by Avery Johnson. And a few years, like 2 or 3 years later, he hit me up and said, hey, did you know that song's being used for bass competitions? And if you watch this video, you can see it. So I go online, and there's like all these videos of people playing my mix of that song and literally like cracking their windshields and stuff like that. It's insane. And it's like, oh yeah, that song does have a big low end. Yeah, I had some tricks on it, but the main thing I did is I just checked out the polarity. Because when Avery had done it and he dropped the 808 and the kick in that, if you know about waveforms and polarity, the 808 was slightly out of phase with the kick drum, and it changed on different notes. So on one note, like the kicks here and the 808's here, and another one just based the waveforms is kind of here. So I went through that song. First off, I flipped the polarity on the 808 or the kick, one of them. And then also could be called the phase or polarity. And then I went through it note by note, and I moved the 808 to match the kick drum so that they're hitting in phase on every note. Not really as much EQ as about just waveforms. And that's a huge thing with especially with program music, not bands so much, because with a band, The bass notes aren't going to always be the same volume. The waveform's not always going to look the same. It's going to be moving around. But if you're doing program music and you really want it to hit, it just kind of comes down to going note by note between your kick and bass part and making sure they're lining up the right way. It takes a long time. There's tools for that now, and there's plugins for that. I just still do it by my ear and by hand because I trust myself more than I trust technology.
We have a question. David Pabor says, I have a friend who's worked like a DJ for 30 years in Norway and is now starting a studio. He does not know how to run a studio. What would be your advice for him? He's 61.
Advice on running a studio?
I guess, yeah.
I mean, have some beer and weed around. I don't know. That's a very open-ended question.
Yeah, it really is.
I don't, like, if you have a specific question, I mean, God, how to run a studio. I'm actually working on a video right now that's going to be a studio tour. Hey, can you hit the wide angle there? So, I mean, this is just my control room here. So people have been asking about my studio. I've done a couple live streams where I walk around and point at the gear, but I thought I'm going to do a video and really talk about the detail about all this equipment. And not only this room, but I've got another room back here that I use for drums sometimes. I've got a vocal booth through that door over there. Then I got an amp room on the other side of that. Then upstairs, I've got a drum room with a really high ceiling, so I can do big drum sounds. And if any of y'all watched my live stream from last week, some of you have seen that room. So anyway, in that video, I'm going to be talking about how I think about studios. It's mostly about home studios, but to me, a lot of that could apply to a professional studio because I've been in professional studios with some of the best gear in the world, and I couldn't get a damn thing done because of some really basic things. And to me, a studio should be something that everything works and there's not a weird radio station in the headphones. And, I think somebody once said to have a good functioning studio, it needs to be something that's used all the time. I've been in studios like they got all that stuff on there, but they're not regularly having bands come in. So you got to test. There's so many things that could go wrong with the connections, right? You need to be working on it all the freaking time. And there's like, that connection's not good. Or I don't know, it's a million little things. Maybe there's a ground issue on one connector and every time you plug it in, it buzzes and stuff like that. It's just bit by bit going through it. In the end, a studio should be something where people come in and it works. People should not be thinking about the gear. I also don't think studios should be too impressive, meaning a studio should be cool. Like I got skulls, I got weird things here, I got all sorts of weird stuff around here.
Should be inspiring.
Yeah, it should be inspiring and interesting. But sometimes you walk into a studio and it's so impressive, it's kind of overwhelming, and then people feel like, oh God, I'm in a church. I don't think people should ever feel like that. I think it should just be fun.
Actually, I saw an interesting, this kind of goes along with that. What is a studio?
I mean, man, I don't know. It's like I've recorded in bedrooms. I mean, the album that I got a Grammy for with the String Dusters, we did some of that in a 200-year-old farmhouse out in a field in Virginia at a music festival because we couldn't finish the album in Nashville. So we got hold of this stone 200-year-old farmhouse that was like not even a mile away from the stage. So you could still kind of hear some of the stage out there, but luckily it was like really thick rock walls. And it was like literally a room, maybe half the size of this room here. And then there was a doorway into the kitchen, but there wasn't even a door. So I brought packing blankets and I was able to tack up the packing blankets and I just ran the wires into the kitchen. So I had a table set up in front of the sink and had speakers up on the kitchen cabinets. And we finished the album in there. We finished all our overdubs, our guitar parts, vocals, percussion and stuff in there. Actually sounded great. Studios wherever you freaking record,
Actually, Lisa Chase Wolf was talking about, you asked, because she had mentioned clowncore and you weren't sure what she was saying. She says it's an experimental jazz artist album that came out a few years ago, and their whole thing is recording their music in places that music would never be recorded.
Oh.
Like porta potties, Astro vans, and the like. And unless it was pointed out, you'd never know.
That's pretty cool. Let's see.
Oh, where did it go? When you were talking about the 808, David Pabor said, is that something you already knew or something you figured out?
Sorry, I was kind of distracted by Tuman's question there. I don't know if I should answer that. So make of that what you will. Sorry, ask the question again.
I've got to see what back when you were talking about the 808 and you were talking about taking out some of the lows. They were asking, is that something you already knew or did you just sort of figure that out?
I was born knowing that. Oh, no, something I figured out. I mean, I never went to school for any of this stuff, which is why it's kind of hard for me to explain it because I don't know how to explain it. I just learned, and I'm starting to build some. I've been working on some courses. Oh my God, but they're hard to do. Like I said, I'm going to do a deep dive Patreon exclusive video tonight where I'm going to talk about mixing drums. And if y'all want to do that, you would need to join at the $10 a month membership. But I get in there and I kind of go into it. I'm getting better at it, but I figured all this out on my own, just through trial and error. I've been doing this a really long time, and trial and error. Like, one thing you got to understand about me, I am really obsessive about stuff, and it's not like in a tweaky way, like well, actually, sometimes it is stupid and tweaky, but I'll go down a rabbit hole sometimes. And usually I try to do this when I'm by myself, so I'm not taking up an artist's time unless they're down with me. But yeah, I'll try a million ways to mic a guitar, or especially with the rap thing. With the rap thing, to answer your question more specifically about rap, I already knew a bunch of that stuff, right? But when I got into it, I started working with Little John early on and all these guys, and then it started to blow up, and I knew this is going to be huge. I also knew it was a competitive area. And even though I'm primarily an artist, I started as an artist and a singer and having bands and all that. I was like, I want to be a professional mixer, and then I moved more into production. But it's like, I want to do this. I want to compete on this level. So, man, I tried a million things on drums and all that. And funny thing was, I figured out that there's a lot of fancy techniques. Sometimes it's just kind of like a very simple thing. And so I went and listened to a bunch of rap records, and I just started experimenting with it and just digging in and digging in and digging in. And I would spend forever on the mixes by myself before I called the client in. But here's the interesting thing. A lot of what I learned in rap music, I was able to take over into bluegrass, because in bluegrass, you've got the stand-up bass, the big acoustic bass. And that's one of the hardest things to record and mix in the world. Oh, my God. But thank God, because of my experience working with tuned 808s, I understand that the way the low-end frequencies, which are the biggest frequencies and the most powerful ones, the effect that they can have on a mix. So I was able to take a lot of knowledge I got from mixing rap records with tuned 808s and apply it to bluegrass, because I hate how most bluegrass records just sound really wimpy to me. And I love the sound of a stand-up acoustic bass. If you're ever in a room with somebody thumping away on an acoustic bass, you're like, oh my God, it's just got this tremendous low end on this punch, but it's got these harmonics and it's a complex instruments. So hard to get on a record. And I think people just kind of, they put a multi-band compressor on it and they kind of tuck it in the background. Yeah, it's like, no, I want that thing pumping out front like a kick drum. So I when I did the Laws of Gravity record for the infamous String Dusters, there was one song in particular I spent probably 2 days just on the bass part. I literally cried at one point. It was so hard, but when I knew I had it right, I literally was crying. It was actually the song Gravity, because I wanted that bass part to punch. I just really wanted to be out front, and I actually pulled it off. Thank God for Pro Q3 now, because this was before Pro Q3. I had all these other techniques. Now Pro Q3 makes that stuff way easier, but you got to know how to use it.
Actually, that kind of leads us into this question from Greece. So in one of your videos, you mentioned stopping the insanity with plugins, but then in other videos, you talk about using all these cool plugins, like some of Slate's Infinity plugins and stuff. I'm new to mixing. I'm honestly kind of lost on what I should be using. Should I go ahead and buy new stuff, or do I have enough?
Okay, hold on a sec.
What? Hey, and who set up the camera?
No, I bumped it. I swear, I can't. I've been sitting here looking at your camera, and it's crooked. It's been driving me nuts this whole time. I'm like, I hope nobody is noticing the camera's crooked. I just couldn't deal with that. Okay, sorry, guys. So yeah, so I'm like, hey, stop the insanity with the plugins. Hey, here's some cool plugins. Basically, I'm a walking contradiction. And I actually got called out on that on a couple of big YouTube videos I did where people said, well, in this video, you said this and then you said that. It's like, well, here's the thing. Two complete opposites that seem to contradict each other can both be true. My point in the Stop the Insanity video about plugins is that was more focused on the fact that people think the answer lies in the plugins. It's like, oh my God, the whole like, what's your vocal chain? I'm like, vocal chain, good singer, and a mic that's plugged in. Right? I could get more deep into it, but it's like, it's just like, for somebody to sit there and say, oh, they use this and this and this when they're mixing, that's going to work on all the singers. It's like, kind of, yeah, whatever, man. I think that people think there's a plugin that's going to solve some sort of problem or going to fix everything, and that's kind of what I was talking about. On the other hand, there are certain plugins that really do a great job on something, and I'll get into that, but it's not necessarily the thing that's going to work on every song I work on. Both of these things can be true. At the end of the day, I think one of the biggest problems is that people are relying on the mix to fix the song or to fix the production, the whole fix it in the mix thing. I focus on what's going down and, like, can I get it down a certain way? Like somebody was in here the other day and I compress my vocals as I'm recording them. And a lot of engineers will do that and just kind of hit a little bit. I hit that sucker. I'm using like a distressor and I'm hitting it pretty hard. I bake it as it goes in. It's baked in. Now, that comes with some experience. Didn't always work, but the cool thing about that is kind of forces you to live with it, and then you have other decisions to make. Yeah, it's just in there. But I just think go study the plugins, and if you find some that do a really cool job, cool, but that's not really what it's about. It's a lot of it's just about like arrangement. Here, I'll give you a great example. Sometimes people send me mixes, and it's usually something that's self-produced, right? And it's usually something where they're using a lot of software instruments, and they'll have like 3 keyboard parts, right? And they're all playing in the same range. Like they're playing like chords, and they're like here, right? Da-na-na-na-na, and then there's another one, and the sound might be a little different, but they're da-na-na-na. They're all right here. And they're like complaining they can't hear them. It's like, well, I'll tell you what, this one should have been an octave up. Put that one up here, and take that one down, and put it down here. Mix is instantly easier. Or if you can't totally take that part and make it an octave up, like maybe it's chords, right? At least invert it. Take the bottom note and move it up and get them out of the way of each other. That's one of the most common things. People just start putting parts down without thinking about how do they interact. So when I'm producing and I'm working on a track, I'm literally mixing as I go. Like I stop and try to get a mix, like as it goes to make sure this is going to work. You gotta keep an eye on that sort of thing. And it kind of comes back to the whole plugins thing. Like, yeah, you could put a plug on some stuff, but if you make the right decision earlier and make sure that the parts actually are going to work together, that they're out of the way of each other sonically, but rhythmically they're out of the way. Yeah, put a plugin on it, whatever. But half the work or most of the work is done right there. So sorry I sound like I'm contradicting myself sometimes. I know it can be frustrating, but it's all true.
Thank you for the follow, T-Beat, over there on
Thank
Twitch. I did have, let's see.
Hold on. Lisa, you write really long comments here. Hold on.
Hey, y'all, don't forget, Billy does private consultations. You can, contact us with email, or you can go over to Patreon. Also on Patreon, he's doing exclusive live streams where he does a deep dive into some aspect of recording or mixing. And so it's almost like a private lesson. So those live streams, there's going to be one tonight, and they'll also be available for later viewing. These are paid subscribers only.
Well, paid, are they called subscribers on Patreon?
Patrons.
Patrons, yes.
Yes.
$10 and up for now. Eventually the price will go up. Right now, $10 a month, and you can see the deep dive live streams. Hey, Lisa Chase Wolf, interesting comment here on Twitch. Hey, Lisa, do you have like I've been I've been actually watching what you say on Discord, even though I don't get involved because it's hard to follow the conversation. But I look at your comments on Discord, and you've always got really good opinions and interesting experiences and all that. Do you have like a website or something? Can you put your socials up here? I'm kind of curious. Every time I see you on here, you're
I
always like,
don't know if she can paste links. I think we have to. Are you on? If you're on Discord, Lisa?
yeah, Lisa,
send me links.
Yeah, or just send it to Kit now at Contact Billy Hume, and she'll grab it and throw it up. I just kind of want to look at what you're working on and stuff because you seem to have a lot of experience. I really like what you're adding to the Discord conversations and on these chats as well. Let's see.
Well, there was a question. Who is the engineer or producer that you feel like you've learned the most from in person? Somebody you might consider a mentor.
I mean,
that one's silent. I don't know.
I don't think there was one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm trying to think of one.
I've never seen somebody mix a song before. I've never worked with another engineer. I never worked in another studio. I mean, my mentors were normally people that it didn't have anything to do with production. I mean, I learned some stuff about production from Rick Beato, but it was more about like, kind of like how some harmony ideas and stuff like that. How to not talk to bands was one. A lot of business stuff from him. I did learn from some rap producers, guys coming in, the real guys. That was really interesting. But I never actually worked with any engineers. I just figured this out. I didn't know any. I mean, you got to realize I started in the 70s. And I was in Atlanta, and I didn't realize at the time there actually was a studio scene here in Atlanta. There was actually a lot of records made back then, but it was a very tight, closed circle, and I had no way of finding any of these people. I was mainly playing in cover bands and at bars and all that, so I had to figure this all out on my own. I literally never had a mentor that took me under the wing and taught me how to do all this. I literally just had to pull out a mic and what does it sound like throwing a towel? I saw a video where there was a towel on a tom. Maybe that's how you record it. Boom. Okay, let's record toms like that for a while. Oh, they didn't have a towel on the drum, or they have a mic here. They have a mic there. I don't know. I'm just scouring around, and there was no internet, so I would go into stores and find books and. I went to studios a couple times and there was somebody mixing, but they'd normally kick me out. I got kicked out of one. I did see Ron Christopher mix for 5 minutes before he made me leave the control room. And then during the rap days, if I went to another studio and one of my peers, and they're all my friends, they were mixing, they would never let me see what they were doing because they're competitive. So,
I have two questions here that kind of go together. The Underdog asked, when it comes right down to it, does the producer have the final say in creative direction? And then Tonchi asked...
Well, hold on to that.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, they should. That is the role. Like earlier when I was talking about a producer and I said quality control, that was something that was said to me once by somebody like, oh, the reason I like you in here beyond just even the production side is because sometimes I've done music videos and stuff like that. And they're like, I know that no matter what you do, it's going to be a certain level of quality. It ain't getting through. It ain't getting through you. And that's like, oh, yeah, I'm quality control. And to me, that's the big thing with a producer. To me, it's like quality control. That's the thing. And it's supposed to be the producer's job, like nothing. It is the producer's final say. Absolutely. It is the producer's final say. Absolutely. I've had situations where with certain artists, you get towards the end of the production or you're working on a song and they're just arguing with you. And normally what I say is like, all right, if you're just going to argue with me, I'll tell you what, I'll do what you want. Take my name off the project. Because if it's not my final say, then just credit me as an engineer and mixer. That's fine. Go ahead. Do it. I have a lot of confidence in my opinion. And I'm not saying that to be egotistical. It's not even an egotistical thing. I know what my opinion is and I know what I want to do, and I'm not going to do what I don't want to do. I mean, if I'm being hired to engineer and just mix, that's a different thing. It's like I'm like a contract assassin or something like that, right? It's like, go out, But when I'm producing, that's what it's about. And if you're not going to take my opinion, then you're either I'm not going to be the producer anymore, or you need to fire me. And that's fine too. I got other projects I can work on. However, as a producer, yes, my opinion has to stay till the end, but sometimes that opinion is for the best of the artist. It's not just like, oh, I'm trying to impose my sound. An artist comes to me and they say, I want to sound like, old school country or this pop thing or whatever. And that's what I'm going to help them do in spite of them. Because it's amazing how sometimes an artist, they're telling me what they want. They just don't believe that what I'm doing is getting there. It's like, I trust you. Trust me, it is getting you there. And so sometimes I literally have to fight the artist to do what's best for them. I'm never trying to impose my sound on anybody. Unless it's my song or whatever, you're going to come work on my song. But I sometimes, because some people don't know what sounds good about themselves. Like, it's hard for most artists to hear something and make a judgment on whether it's good or bad. It's amazing how many times singers, especially, and I'll say, oh, I love that line. I'm like, oh my God, my voice cracks. I'm like, that's the most emotional thing on the whole freaking record. Take it out. I was off pitch. I'm like, it's great that you were off pitch for a split second and leaned into it. That's what makes it powerful. And I'll just say, no, we can't take it out. I'm not tuning it. That's the best thing in there. Why? Because I know what the hell I'm talking about. But I'm also not caught up in it. But I'm doing it for their benefit. And the other thing that's very important, and I don't know how to say this, but keep in mind, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying when you're talking to a producer, letting them know what you want and what you need is very important. Don't try to suck up to the producer because they were no name or whatever and try to, like, I'm going to say I want something because I heard this other record they did like that. I'm not interested in that. I just need to know what you want. Because here's the thing. At the end of the project, I'm going to move on to another project, right? You're going to live with this the rest of your damn life. You better make sure it's what you want, right? Or what you need, right? So you better communicate that to the producer very, very well. And then and make sure that that they're doing their job, then take your advice and then go out there and push it. But it's kind of weird. Like, people have the weirdest motivations going in the studio. I think people think it's all about fame or connections or something like that. No, I want to remind everybody it's the music business. Yeah, your image matters, whether you got cool makeup or like great hair or whatever, that can help. But at the end of the day, it is about the music and the performance, right? So don't get caught up in like, people get the wrong idea about things. It's like, no, make sure that we work with the producer, that they're going to deliver what you think you need to do, what market you're going into. But hopefully the producer is going to hear that. And sometimes, and sat with me, I said, okay, I see what you're saying. What if we tweak it just a little bit this way? That we can, this thing here is cool, like this direction with the genre, but you actually, are a good kind of straight ahead singer-songwriter. Maybe you don't need so many overdubs on it. Let's kind of focus on your voice a little bit more. And that's one of those things where you need to trust them, which goes back to what I said when you choose a producer. You got to make sure that you're communicating with them what it is that you want musically, but also where you're going with your career. But you'd better trust them. You'd better be willing to trust them with your life, because that is kind of what you're doing. It's like, this could spell out the rest of your future. And especially if you're funding this on your own, it's not cheap to hire a good producer. And you put that money into it, and that's money away from marketing and eating and bills and a bunch of other things. You better trust them. So, get to know them. Get to know them.
And I wanted to give a quick shout out to Logan over on Twitch, who gave us a little raid over here.
Oh, thanks, Logan.
We've had two. Headed off to a gig, so have a great gig, Logan.
Is that our friend Logan?
That is our friend Logan.
That is our friend Logan.
Yes.
Oh, Logan, couch burning.
Oh, yeah.
Couch burning. Ask Justin. He'll tell you about it.
Come on out.
I want you to come out to the couch burning.
Kind of in the same vein as what you were just talking about with producers, Donchi asked, do you like taking care of the creative part of a production or arrangement? And if you do, how do you enjoy approaching that?
I mean, that's the thing I enjoy the most. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm producing stuff and it's not really my role, but usually in those situations, it's already so good, I can just kind of enjoy it. But, I mean, how do I approach it? I mean, it just depends on the artist. Like, Sometimes they need help writing songs, you know. Sometimes they need help with lyrics, and I am not a great lyricist, but I can usually help them become better by guiding them. I'm good at looking at like lyrics overall and saying, okay, what is the storyline here? Hey, the second verse needs some more work. I think you need to get more personal. Blah blah blah. It just really depends on the project. I mean, I don't have. I think there's some producers and they produce everything the same way. Everything I produce is completely different. I have no set way of doing anything. So yeah, yes, I am in Georgia. Let's see. Oh, there was something.
Which one?
Why? Oh, somebody said, have you ever had a harsh frequency in a mix that you just couldn't get out? Absolutely not. Although I've pulled my hair trying to get that damn frequency out. So what happens sometimes with that is that it's not just like one instrument. Sometimes it's the way a bunch of things go together. Oh, no, I've eventually gotten it out. Not always completely. I mean, and the crazy thing about it is sometimes some of that stuff you just can't completely get out. But you got to, if you're looking for a harsh frequency, the best thing you can do is just like start just turning off instruments. Don't solo them. Don't solo them because it's a weird thing. Sometimes there'll be something that has a harsh frequency on it. And when you listen to it by itself, you don't notice it. So the best thing to do is start turning off instruments one at a time. You go, oh, there it is. Then you turn off another one, and then sometimes it's a combination between them too. I mean, eventually you can get most of it out of there, but you know, there's been some times it was like, yeah, it drove me nuts.
Tim, an official, said, I love how passionate you talk about your gear and how you always remember when you bought it. What is some of your cheapest gear that you use regularly?
SM57s. One would be, this is one of my favorites here. I've shown this thing so many times. People can go, oh, that again. This. I got this in a pawn shop. It's a Rockman sustainer made by Tom Scholz from Boston. It's like, this is back before like computers and stuff like that. It's basically like an amp modeler. I think I got this in a pawn shop for like $15. Brought it home, thought it sounded like shit. And I put it on a shelf for like 15 years. And then I guess around the time we moved to this studio, I pulled it out. I'm like, God, I love this thing. I use it all the time. There's that. What else? What's cheap that I use? I don't know. I mean, usually it's kind of like microphones. I've got that weird mic I show on the stream sometimes that I pulled out of a box of broken headphones. We think it's an EV mic. The name scratch off, the grill's coming off. That thing sounds great, you know. Usually it's mics. Once you get into the mic pre's, they're all kind of expensive, you know. Oh, I would say, and I did show this. I don't really have a camera I can show it with right now. These FMR audio, really nice compressors, the RNC compressors. Those are really, really cool. They're just these little racks. I can't, they're right here. It's going to be in my new video coming out, my video with the studio tour. Mark Hendrickson, yes, the Yamaha Rev 7, but that's not cheap. I mean, I guess you could buy one cheap, but when I bought it, it was a lot of dang money back then. Let's see, there was another question.
Well, there have been a couple questions about, like, how often do you use your reel-to-reels, or are you more into analog? So a couple of questions kind of along those lines.
Hold on. I want to come back to something Soul Machine said. It's a really good point here. My approach to producing is what's the best for the song. Like if I represent the song itself, I don't care what myself I like or not. What does the song want? See, I always thought it was just like, can I put backwards reverb in this thing? I got to put backwards reverb in everything. No, I'm only kidding. No, that's so Soul Machine, like what you're touching on, that's a really good way of saying it. I feel like, yes, what's best for the song is ultimately the thing that's important when you're producing a song. There's this other thing that happens, though, where you start producing the song and there's going to be kind of a predetermined idea of what you think is going to be best for the song, either yourself as a producer or with other people or whatever. And this is actually usually where I get in arguments with people. Or not arguments, because I don't like wasting my time with arguments, but, you know, when I get pushback. And that is, you've got a song, y'all kind of talked about, oh, it's going to be rootsy rock, or it's going to be this, or whatever. It's going to be a dance song. And it's going to sound like this. We're going to have programmed drums or live drums. It could be a million things. But once you get into it, things just start to happen and the song kind of takes on a life of its own. And to me, that's where the real magic happens. And there's a certain part of like, this is where I said earlier when producers have to have perspective. As a producer, it's your role to go into the song, kind of have an idea what it is you're going to do. Not all the time. Sometimes you can go in and just make it up on the spot. Certain projects, that's fine. But you need to be adaptable enough to recognize at a certain point that maybe some of your preconceived notions are wrong or not the best thing, and that is kind of pushing in this other direction. And you got to be able to like to take that chance. So like, yeah, what's best for the song? But sometimes you do that and then the song just starts, something else starts to happen. And you're like, I feel like the song is now dictating to me. God, you know, I don't even know how to explain how it happens, because when it happens, everybody in the room knows it. And like, let's just go with that. Like, that's now going in this direction. And to me, that's usually the best thing. I don't even know how I could explain it, because whenever it happens, it's like you're aware it's happening, but I don't think you're measuring it. It's like falling in love. At the moment you're falling in love, did you go, oh, then my heart started beating faster? And you know what I'm saying? But to me, that's where the real magic happens. Definitely what's best for the song. You got to take your ego out of it. But there's a certain point where it's like, you know, if it starts going off in another direction, then that's what you should probably pursue and follow. Hey, it's digital. It's always easy to undo stuff. You can always go back. But when something unusual happens and some weird thing happens, I always encourage people, like, go down that rabbit hole. I mean, unless you're on some insane budget or like there's like some time, like just take the time and go down that rabbit hole. You can always undo or just turn off the tracks. But I always encourage people to go in the wacky direction, because a lot of great things can come from that. Oh, sorry. What were you going to say, Kit?
Just some people were asking about analog, like how often do you use your reel-to-reels, and, you know, are you more into analog than digital? And I mean, I can go ahead and say,
the analog thing, and
Yeah.
Kit, put this video link up there, and I'm sure probably most people here have seen this video, where I had a video called The Real Reason Why Analog is Better, or Analog Recording is Better. A lot of people got on there and were debating with me about the sound. It's like the video wasn't about the sound. The video was about the workflow. That's what it was about to me, the way we think about what we're doing. But I do like some of the stuff about tape. But I mostly work in the box. Now I've got the 16 track over here, the One-Inch Machine, which I messed around with a couple streams ago. It's I don't think y'all can see it. It's back over there. And I had a couple guys come out, Jason Kingsland and Vic, come out and work on it. And now it's working better. I'm going to do some stuff in analog, just kind of for the fun of it. I actually just got off the phone with Andy Falco from the infamous String Dusters. I've mentioned this before, and I think we're going to do this. He's going to come down at some point, and we're going to write some songs, and I'm going to get some musicians, and we're going to record a whole song, onto the analog 16 track and mix it. Here, let's get an overview here. We're going to mix it on the board, if I can. And we're going to mix it. We're going to record a song, and we're going to mix it, and they're going to release it that night. And we're going to try to do several of these in a row. We'll see if we can pull it off. And I just kind of want to do it because I put a lot of work into the machine, the tape machine. And we're going to do like more of a rootsy rock thing. And I'm going to get some great musicians in here that don't have to punch in too much. So it'll be kind of fun, and just, I don't know, it might be a cool thing to try out. But I mostly am in the box. Sometimes occasionally I'll drop some drums over to the tape just to get that tape analog or that tape compression sound, and then I'll drop it back into the DAW, you know.
Yeah, several things have flown by here. Trying to see.
Let's see.
Not really, Gavin. Mine's a little straighter. Billy's
Hold on,
is more
Tyler's
curly.
saying something kind of interesting. Hold on there. Tyler
yeah.
says, so my question is, since I live in Croatia now, and I just don't know the local music, so would you try to produce music you have no idea about? Absolutely. I always encourage people to jump into deep waters that you don't know how deep they are. That's the only way to me, if you really want to expand your knowledge I mean, like I said, I jumped into rap music and I didn't know what a rap record should sound like. I mean, I got into rap music because I like the people. And plus my air conditioner repairman told me I should do that, which is a whole other story. I got a video about that one as well. But I just knew I wanted to do it because I thought all these guys are really cool. But I had no idea what the record should sound like. I didn't even know what anybody was saying because everybody had this like Swats accent, you know, like Southwest Atlanta. It took me a long time to figure out that every single one of them knew how to speak English perfectly well, but they just like talking like that and they're kind of screwing with me. I'm like, what is he saying? Oh, after a while I was like, oh, actually they could say it the way they wanted to. But I just jumped in. I just didn't know anything, and it was like humiliating sometimes. But hey, I did the same thing with rock. Because I was not really a rock guy, so I started doing rock records and just like, there's some mistakes I made and things I didn't do right. But man, there's no better way. Like, you know, to try to wait till you're ready to do something is probably the biggest mistake anybody makes in life. Like, go ahead and prepare, do some research. Of course, I usually don't even do that, but wouldn't suggest that to everybody. But if you wait till you're ready, you'll never get anything done because it's like you're never going to be freaking ready. I was thinking about that this morning, like having kids, you know. Kit?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
It's like, hey, let's have some kids. Oh, yeah, it'll be great. And then, like, right before she's giving birth to her first kid, I'm like, what? Oh, wait a sec. What are we doing here? Hold on. She's like, too late. Yeah.
I remember being at one of your sister's houses and they didn't have kids and our kids were tumbling all over each other in the living room. And they turned and said, well, you know, how did you know you were ready? And Billy had to say, well, you're never ready. You're never ready. You just have to, if it's what you want to do, you just have to start.
Still not ready.
Still not ready.
Still not ready. And they're all like in young adulthood. Jesus. So yeah, go out and work with music that you don't, I mean, go and try it, you know, do the research and see how other people do it, but just go try to figure it out. Like, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You get fired? So what? You know, I've done projects where I've been fired before, but usually everybody's really cool because they know my heart's in the right place. And then I was like, well, then I actually got fired from a band. It wasn't producing. I got fired from a band. And then it was kind of humiliating, but I ended up saying, you know, I went on the road with them running sound for the guitarist who took my place. But I was too embarrassed. Like because I was really young and it was a chance to go out on the road and I didn't want to go back to my job. So I said, let me just go run sound for you. And dude was a great guitar player. He's like, oh, okay, I see how I got fired now. And actually he and we ended up becoming really good friends. And that was one of the best things I ever did. And so, yeah, just try it, even if you screw up. I mean, you know. Oh yeah, I'm taking some questions now. I'm not going to do a bunch because I do need to end it because I got to get ready for my Patreon exclusive live stream at 7. So I'm taking some questions here for a little while.
I was going to throw up the Patreon link while I'm thinking about it, and trying to see. Let's see.
Oops. Oh, hold on. I think I'm off my chat here.
Raygun Radio Star earlier had a question about their room. Said their room is garbage. It's like 12 by 12. I use Kali LP/UNFs with a PreSonus sub. Never had a sub till recently. Makes me feel like I have no idea what low end is. I mean, you probably have some tips about turning a room that's maybe not ideal.
I mean, 12 by 12, I mean, a square room's not great. But 12 feet by 12 feet isn't terrible. Well, the main thing is don't set up in a corner, right? Make sure that your speakers are, you know, equal distance from each one. You want to be in the, like wherever you set your speakers up. Make sure they're not right against the wall. No matter what kind of room you're in, don't record in the middle of the room. Don't set up your gear, like your speakers in the middle of the room. The subwoofer thing is huge too. It's like where you place the subwoofer in relation to your speakers. Like some people say it doesn't matter where you put it. It's like, no, you actually do need to listen to some records and try moving it around. Do a lot of experimentation. The other thing, the best thing you could do is if you're in a bedroom, you couldn't do this, but if you have the room, put a couch behind you. Put a couch on the wall behind you. Couches are great at soaking up a lot of low end. And then up on the wall, you want some diffusion behind you. If you can't build a diffuser, you don't have the money, put a bookshelf up behind you with a bunch of randomly sized books. Old school, very old school way of doing with it. Just, yeah, I see a Mark, bookcase diffuser, exactly. I got one like with my drum where I set up the drums upstairs. I've got a bookshelf up there with a bunch of books, and I literally, took all the different sizes. Normally I want to have all the big books together. It's all mixed up, and that works as a diffuser.
So Violin Dark Stalker over on Twitch says, my wife and I have a band, and it's really different. One of the difficulties we've had in mixing our music is not having a reference that was really in the ballpark of what we do. We finally figured out how we want to mix our music, but do you have advice about how to tackle that kind of situation?
Figure out, situation...
like not
figure
really
out
having a reference, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, yes. In different genres, frequency-wise, and the way the mix sounds, sometimes it's good to have a reference to listen to. But I think it's kind of more broad than that. I'll give you an example of something I did years ago when I was really learning how to mix. And this is, I guess, late 90s. And there were two different popular records out there. I was doing more rock, right? But I actually found I could do this on almost any, not rap, but anything not rap, right? So I took that song by Iris by, who's Iris by? The Goo Goo Dolls, yeah. Which I think is a Jack Joseph Puig mix. And that is a very scooped mix. Not a lot of mid-range. A lot of like nice low end, high end. The vocals are actually kind of quiet compared to other songs. At the same time, there was a song by, I think, The Verve? The whole album, actually. And that's a very mid-rangey sounding album. Oh, my God. Like if you A-B them, like you listen to my cool, but if you actually go back and forth, you're like, oh, my God. You put on The Verve, and at first you're like, this thing sounds terrible. Then you listen to it for 3 minutes, this is cool. Then you put on and the vocals are really loud, right? Then I'd go back to the Goo Goo Dolls, and you're like, oh my God, this sounds terrible. I can't hear the vocals, and mid-range is gone. And then you listen to it for 3 minutes, oh, sounds good too. I finally got to the point where I realized, like, oh, I can use those like control groups, like for a scientific experiment. No matter what I was mixing, not rap, of course, but anything else, if I could A-B my mix with the Goo Goo Dolls and know my low end is not bigger than theirs, and my high end isn't higher than theirs, and my vocals isn't any quieter than theirs, I'm in a safe range. I could switch over to the Verve record and go, I'm not more mid-rangey than them, and my vocals aren't any louder than them. At least I'm in a safe area. And that's a very broad way of looking at it, because sometimes when people are using references for mixes and production, they kind of adhere to them a little too much, right? And so there's that. So sometimes it's good to have some mixing references that are very broad. Another very, very, very important thing when you think about listening to a song as a reference is what is the tempo. I've had clients come in and they got a song that's going boom, boom, ba, ba, boom, boom, ba, ba, boom, boom, and they're like, we want it to sound like this. And it's like boom, tsh, boom. And like the low end's not the same. I'm like, well, it's never going to be the same. It's never going to be the same, because the way low frequencies work is low frequencies, if you think about, if you actually could see the waveform or measure the waveform for some of these low frequencies, the actual waveform from the time it goes up and comes down and then comes back to the cross-through line or whatever they call it, the 0 point, is literally the length of this freaking room or longer. Some of these waveforms are like, 22 feet long and stuff like that. They're massive, right? So the physics of the low end thing, and I'm not a physicist, but when you have big low frequencies, if they come out of the speaker and then the note stops coming out of the speaker, it actually hangs in the room for a minute. It actually hangs around for a split second, right? Also, the way low end works is it seems kind of like on low instruments, it's like you need a little bit of time for it to kind of develop, right? To hold in the air. When you've got a slow song and they're just hitting these big notes, but you got a fast sound, you can actually have more low end on the fast song, like technically speaking. It's never going to sound like it has as much low end as the slower song with the long notes. So, and I'm not going to get into the whole, that's a whole other discussion, but what I'm saying is when you're looking at references, make sure you're matching the tempo. That's huge. That's a huge thing. And people often overlook that. Like, oh, why does it sound like that? Well, it's a different tempo. It's a completely different vibe. It reverberates. Hey, I said it.
Reverberates.
Oh, I said it wrong again. Reverberates.
Yes. Reverberates.
I noticed how she has it in quotes. I think she's witnessed me trying to say reverberates.
Yes, this has happened before.
So
I do want. Oh, go on.
Yeah. So about getting references for your music, because it's very different. If you're doing something very unique, you probably it's not about finding necessarily a band or records that sound like what you're doing musically. It's more about sonically, like, are you playing acoustic instruments or are they electronic instruments and stuff like that? Kind of more look at, as opposed to type of songs, like what are the kind of sounds that they're using, and then kind of find some references that are actually extreme versions of that. Like, oh, this is like kind of similar instruments, a lot of low end, or there's a lot of mid range, or these are the vocals are high, and then kind of use them as kind of like barriers. Like, oh, as long as I don't have more low end than that, or as long as I'm not vocals aren't louder than that, or like, oh, there's snare drums. Don't worry so much about trying to match it up too much on a production and mixing side. Just overall low end, high end, and mid range, and then you'll be fine.
Somebody asked, what is today's topic for your deep dive Patreon exclusive live stream?
Okay, so this is part 2 of mixing live drums. I did one like a week or so ago, and I'm going through just mixing some drums that I did on a live stream here where we went through tuning drums and all that kind of stuff. I might throw in something else tonight. It's just like tweaky stuff. I'm getting really deep into. I showed actually on the last one, I showed a trick I've never shown ever to anybody except of a couple people sitting in a room with me. So I showed that on there. It has something to do with getting punch on drums. And so tonight, I'm just going to be kind of diving in more on some of that and some techniques I have, little things you can do on live drums. And I might throw in something that I did with Darren Stanley for another one of my songs, because he's got completely different sounding drums. So I'll probably be doing that. Future ones there'll be some other future Patreon exclusives that are like, a lot of people have been asking about miking an acoustic guitar. So I want to do one with that, but I think when I do that, I want to bring in a really good acoustic guitar player so I can have them play and I move the mics, because I've got a single mic technique, a double mic technique, and a 3 mic technique. So I want to do one about those. Tonight is mixing live drums, so that's basically the thing.
And right now, these deep dive live streams are available to patrons at the $10 or higher level. That will end up going up, but for right now, $10 or more, and you can access these live streams and look at the video later as well.
Yeah, Sacred, you're talking about how people think all records sound the same. Man, if you actually go through and have a way of A-Bing between different records, you'd be blown away how different they all sound. The reason they work is because a lot of it has to do with the mid-range, because everybody's got different types of stereo systems. Some people have subwoofers. Some people have more hi-fi systems, with a lot of top end. Some people listening on earbuds. So everybody's got a different range on the outside edges of like low end and high end, right? But everybody's got mid range. So if you can make your mix work with parts of the mid range that represent the main elements, then that's how you make it work. I spend a lot of time in the mid range. Everything's got to have some kind of mid range in there. And sometimes it's just poking up a little bit here. And I'm talking about anywhere from like, I don't know, 700 up to 2K, right? And I'll go through different instruments, and if I'm having a problem, I look for mid-range things to, like, where can I make it poke out there? And sometimes it's just here, and I try not to repeat that on somewhere else. If you can do that, then you can make your mix work anywhere.
Hume official said, Billy, I always struggle with finishing a mix. The next day I always find things that bother me or don't sound right. How should I approach this problem? How do you know when your mix is done? And then I gave them the line that I've heard you use before. A mix is never finished. It is only ever abandoned.
Well, actually, the quote is, a record is never done.
Ah.
It's abandoned.
Yes.
Hey, I think you're bumping the table with the camera on it.
Sorry.
I don't like seeing the camera move. Don't stop that. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to like keep tweaking that mix, driving yourself crazy. I try not to listen to the mix. I mean, unless I'm doing it for a client. I try to not listen to it the next day. I mean, not always. Sometimes I let it sit for a few days and then I go listen to it. And I try to listen to it in a casual way because there's different ways to listen to music. It's one of these funny things. It's funny. I hear people say, other producers and engineers that go, I can't listen to music anymore because I start listening to the snare drum sound. And I guess I kind of do that. But I've been doing this for so long that I think I've learned how to listen to music casually and just enjoy it. And I feel like if I can listen to the mix without trying to analyze it too much, can I listen to it from a distance and like it? One of my biggest tricks for listening to a mix, Tumen, is, we're sitting here. I've got my speakers set right here. Go turn on your speakers and open a door and walk into another room and listen to it from the hallway, right? That'll tell you a lot right there. And it's not even like frequency response because sometimes it might get boomy in the hallway. It's more about like, can you hear the important parts in there, right? Like, listen to it casually, listen to it in a different place. Go listen to it here's the biggest thing, man. Listen to your mix with somebody else in the room. Even if they're not saying anything. Sometimes you don't even have to look at them. I swear, it's almost like some quantum physics stuff. Like Kit, I'll be working on something, then I'll say, hey, Kit, come on down here and listen to it. And she doesn't know. She's not going to say, she's got great opinions on songs in a very general way and lyrics and stuff like that. She's not going to know whether the reverb, whatever. But the funny thing is, if she's here in the room listening with me and I'm not even looking at her, and it's not just her, it's other people, I swear I hear it differently. It's the craziest thing. And I hear it in a way that's not like the super tweaky thing. It's technical. I don't even know how to describe it. But that's one of the best things to do. Like, just put somebody else in the room,
You play differently when someone else is in the room, too.
Oh, yeah, I definitely play differently. So I'd say, try listening from another room. Like, crank it up and go out in the other room, or get in your car, do the car test, but not overanalyzing it. Like, do the car test. You crank it up and you listen to the low end, but do the car test, but turn it down like you're having a conversation. It's just playing in the background, stuff like that. And then just listen to it with other people in the room. Go to a friend's house and listen to it. That's another thing. Go put it on somebody else's stereo. You want to get depressed. Because sometimes people don't know how to set up the stereos. They got it they got the treble turned down and all that. But it's kind of a good way to kind of get an idea of how your mix might sound, which is why I say try to make it work in the mid-range.
I will say, I think we're past an hour and a half, and I don't know
Yeah,
how
I said
long
I was
you
going to
wanna
do an hour and a half because I've got to actually, Harper and I got to film something for the next video. He's going to help me film something in my amp room because I'm talking about the amps, and it's for this studio tour, studio philosophy video I'm working on. And then I got to get ready for the Patreon live stream at 7. So this has been fun. I really appreciate everybody. Watching and commenting and all that kind of stuff. If you want to jump over to the Patreon thing, I'll be able to answer more questions there. Otherwise, I'll be back on next Wednesday. I'm going to be doing more nighttime live streams like I did the other night playing guitar. I don't know when. Those just kind of pop up. I never really know when those are going to happen.
Yeah, those will be random. So just make sure that you subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification button if you want to know when Billy goes live or when he releases a new video. This is all over on YouTube that I'm talking about. And over there on Twitch, y'all make sure to follow. And if you can, subscribe. We appreciate it.
And also check out my Discord. Most of the time, I think I missed that guitar overdub or stream the other night on Discord. But I'm normally posting stuff up on Discord about when I'm going to be doing stuff. So... all right. Well, everybody, thank you so much. Have a good day. Be good to each other and be unique. See you later.
Bye.
Take 1.
Take 2.
Take 3. Take 4.
Take 5. Take
Take whatever.